Okay. This is so new. I don't know why I can't see like a chat room. There's supposed to be a chat room.
I see chat on the side. But
Yeah.
it looks like
Message live. Wait, cancel. Oh, I almost left. Okay. If you guys are, if there are people tuning in, I don't even know how to see how many people are watching this. Wait, I see maybe there's 2.
Oh, there's a thing in the corner that
There's a
says
counter
2.
in the top right. 3. There we go. Nice.
Hey.
All right.
We'll take it.
We lost
2.
one.
Oh, back
We
down
lost
to 2.
For those 2 people, I wonder if those 2 people are us. If anybody's watching, can you please leave a message here in the chat? There should be a chat feature. Now there's 3. There we go. Sunil says hi.
Yeah, okay. It's working.
All right. It is working. So we did this chat active, Virginia Beach. There we go. Hi, Steve.
Perfect.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Sarah to join. Hopefully she joins here pretty soon. And then we have so we have never done this before, and I'm going to be completely and totally honest with you. We have no idea what the heck we're doing.
Per usual, no surprises
which is
there.
often the case.
And you guys can all see us, right? All the viewers at home can see us. We can say hi, everybody. Steve, Sunil.
Presumably, yeah.
What is this show on stream? Yep. Hi.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. Videos are working. Awesome. Cool. So I wanted, did you all have to use the app to join, or were you able to join via the web? I think that might be what the hiccup is, because I might not have given enough time for people to have joined. And who knows, this might be a very slim live episode, but we did, so Neil's using web. Okay. So this is a good test. I think this was very impromptu. We definitely didn't prepare. There she is. Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah.
Sarah.
Sorry, we had a little delay. What's up?
No, it's okay. We are figuring out this whole live thing right now. If you can see, there is a chat on the right-hand side. We now have 4 people watching.
Okay.
And we
Hello,
have,
everybody.
So we have, Steve says it was only Chrome and Edge were the only available browsers, but I'm glad that it was working on a browser. And let me just throw something back up in the ATG Facebook group, because we did get quite a few responses to people who were interested in participating.
I saw that. Yeah. It could just be like a little first come, first serve at this point, right?
Yeah.
If we just throw the link out there.
And let me see. And it's just the algorithm on the Facebook group right now has been very suppressive, problematic. So 6 viewers. All right, cool. Rico just messaged. Yep.
Yeah, it looks like Edge or Chrome are the only ones that are working right now.
He's trying to open a Firefox. Yeah. So,
yeah.
Anyway, while I navigate this, would everybody like to introduce themselves? You all have been on the show before. So if you've been listening to our show in the past, you'll know everybody that's here. But for just a quick reference, why don't we start with Mrs. Scott, Miss Sarah? Why don't you do a very quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and why you might be here today?
Put me on the spot first, Neil. That's how we're going.
It's just, you're kind of like the most outgoing of us all. So
I got no problems. My name is Sarah. I own Freestyle Adventure Travel, which is a travel agency located in Ushuaia, the port city. And I've been working in the Antarctic industry for 15 years now on the sales side, and going down as much as I can, but mostly helping people travel south. Is that short enough?
Yeah, that was perfect. You know, it's funny. We did get a lot of messages because you've been on the show before. And we talked about booking trips, and we mentioned your travel agency, and everybody knows we own a travel agency. And we know that you actually got a lot of emails from people who watched that show interested in booking your trips with you. And I was like, that I felt good about that, but I was like, that was kind of that you call us first. But,
I think they ended up booking with you, but they were like, I heard about you on the Drake Shake, which is great.
But no, it made me feel good that one, people are listening and people are responding to it, but also like the whole transparency thing. We got a bunch of compliments saying like, hey, it was really nice to see you guys do that and show that this is an informative podcast and not a sales pitch.
Yep.
It was sort of, that was the whole goal of all of this. So, yeah, that was really nice. And hopefully, again, if anybody's listening, feel free to reach out to Sarah at Freestyle Adventure Travel. They're awesome. They're super rock stars. Phil,
Thanks,
you're
Neil.
going to need very short little introduction. You've been on the show a few times. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, just a couple. This is show number 3 for me, and I'm so excited to be back. The live episode. Let's go. That's going to be really cool. My name is Phil Hunter. I've been in the expedition industry for 15 years now, between Alaska and the Arctic and the Antarctic. And I've been an expedition leader for a long time, and I've transitioned now into the back end operations, the field operations for expedition operators going to the polar regions and beyond. So bringing a lot of that operational know-how and expertise most of the
Behind
time.
the computer.
And it's been a lot of behind the computer in meetings. So this is now familiar territory for me. So hi, excited.
I am. I was screenshotting that.
I figured
photo.
I saw you posing, and I was like, he's taking a
Yeah,
photo.
so I'm
Yeah, he's taking a photo.
I'm
Just give me
screenshotting.
a heads up
And-
next time, okay?
And we
so
should
you
say
ready?
that
On 3.
Neil.
On 3, everybody smile for the
Everybody
screenshot.
smile.
1, 2, 3. There we go.
So Neil, Phil, and I were
Um,
all in Antarctica together post pandemic. What was it? 2022?
Mhm. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess.
Yeah.
the old Ocean Victory.
On the Ocean Victory.
How is this not working? I don't know.
Yeah, it's been a while, Sarah. Good to see you again.
It has been a while. Good to see you too. Just a few years, a few kids later.
Yeah, no big deal. No big deal.
for both of you.
That's
No,
right.
I was done.
Were you done? Yeah. Well, two kids later for me, definitely.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is working the way I wanted it to work. Oh no, it's not.
What are you
I
trying to
just
do?
want that. I'm just trying to screenshot that photo and then put it up on the thing on the Facebook post. But anyway, whatever.
That's a lot of
It is what it is.
multitasking, Neil.
All right, so we've got. And then Nikki, go ahead, Nikki. Nikki, your room is
Okay.
looking more cozy. We
Yes. Yeah. So my name is Nikki. You may be very familiar with my voice if you've been listening to the podcast. I do the intro and the outro, and I am the co-host. I also work in sales for the Antarctica Travel Group, and I've been doing that for a little over a year. So I very much have the least amount of experience of everyone here. I am currently quarantined in Omaha, Nebraska, and this is what a quarantine room in Omaha, Nebraska looks like when people send you a lot of enrichment for your enclosure.
You know, I when I was listening back to the episode that we did about your quarantine, we asked you about the room and to paint a picture for the people back at home, and you had said it was kind of like a Holiday Inn room. And then I went back and I thought about it. I think it's closer to a dorm room than it would be a Holiday Inn.
Yeah, now that I've zhuzhed it up a little bit, it did remind me of being in college, like when I was hanging up these string lights, and I was just like, yeah, it reminded me of university for sure.
Kind of prison cell meets dorm room. So
Yeah.
Are you allowed
Tell me
outside,
dorm room
Nikki?
chic. They have figured out a way to let us outside. We are only allowed to be out in a maximum amount of 4 of us at a time. We mask up and put on PPE for the walk, and then we're in our outdoor enclosure for a maximum of 45 minutes at a time, and then we are
Wow.
brought back to our rooms.
Yeah.
And you have
You've
to sign
used
up.
the word-
Like you have to sign up for it.
What
You've
day
used
are
the word
you on?
enclosure a couple of times. Tell
Today
me how you really
is
feel.
today's day 19
Oh,
Okay.
out of 42.
Okay. I bet you're getting a lot done. I bet your like efficiency has just gone through the roof.
I am surprisingly so busy. Like people keep asking me what I'm doing, and I'm just like, guys, I'm working. I'm working out. I'm being interrupted constantly by phone calls and blood draws and things of that nature.
Oh my gosh.
I've been sent puzzles. I have like 6 or 7 novels to get through. So many people have sent me embroidery. So I'm gonna learn how to embroider.
If you had an oven, you'd be breaking a lot of bread because that's what most people did during COVID was get into the
Yeah.
bread baking phase.
You'll get
Your sourdough.
sourdough.
Yeah, you'll get a
bet.
sourdough
Yeah,
master.
starter.
Yeah,
You're
I could have made it.
gonna-
But, oh my god, maybe I'll ask for an easy bake oven and I'll see what I can accomplish.
Is the food good?
Government funded.
The food's
How's
not
the food?
great. It's kind of a step above hospital food, but there are a lot of local restaurants that are donating meals to us as well. So like yesterday, Omaha Steaks donated us food, and tomorrow
Oh.
there's a barbecue place that we're getting food from. So a lot of the community here is stepping up to help us a lot, which we're all super appreciative of. And the staff here is doing a great job to try to keep us as happy as we can be.
Enriched.
Yeah, as enriched as possible. They have like events that they're doing online, virtual events, and a lot of it is bird related. So I haven't super been participating. But yeah.
Sarah, before you
It
joined,
could be worse.
We were talking about Nikki got a haircut today by a person in full PPE.
Yep.
Oh my
Yep, I got a
goodness.
haircut.
That's a story to tell right there.
Yeah, that's what
Government
she
funded,
said.
she said.
Also, she was like, I can't wait to put this in my book someday. It's like, me too.
All right. I love you. I really do love you guys. The only person missing right now is Greg because he's in Australia. But you know how Greg would be. Take over the episode. I love Greg dearly. Let's hop into our episode. That's our that'll be like our little banter for the day.
Get working.
We don't have any cold openers really, so it's just a weird phase in our lives right now for a cold opener. We're gonna start hopping into some of the questions that we have. We did get a lot of responses from it, and I would love if everybody back in the audience, if everybody would start posting some of your questions up here in the chat here, things that you'd like for us to talk about. And we are focusing on things that sort of center around the planning stages of the trip, but that's kind of how season 1 is going on the podcast. But that doesn't eliminate, or that doesn't mean we can't ask any sorts of questions. And a lot of the questions that we got were kind of all over the board. So we do have them from your responses, but I would love if you put them here in the chat, just any questions that you might have. That way we can start addressing them one by one. And while we wait for those to queue up, I can start bringing up some of the other questions. Let me see. And if you're kind of wondering why I've assembled the Avengers, Sarah and I, obviously we specialize in the travel agency side of things. Phil and I
forgot my cape.
And Phil and I specialize in the expedition side of things. Phil more operationally, and then Nikki specializes in a little bit of everything, but mostly she's our personality.
She adds color.
She adds warmth.
Color, glitter,
a little spice.
chaos.
A little
Warmth.
spice.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay, so we got some questions that we're gonna start going through, and we've been getting some in the emails that we're gonna address too. One of them, we'll start off with. One is new boat versus old boat. And I will first say that if you walk on board and anybody in the bridge hears you call it a boat, they're going to be very upset. These are ships. These are ships. And Nikki
Took me a few years to learn that one. Yeah.
And Nikki calls it a boat from time to time, and I want to correct her, but she's just so. Yeah, it's a ship.
You can correct me. It's you should.
You can also say vessel.
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 Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Everything is a vessel if it's treated the right way.
Yeah.
Our bodies are a vessel. My coffee cup is a vessel. The ship is a vessel.
Your body is a temple, Neil.
It is.
Just so you know.
And yeah.
Okay. New versus old ship. I'd be curious to hear your take, Neil, just from the sales side. I've got lots to say from the ops side, but
yeah, and I also I think Sarah will probably have a lot of input on this too, because you've been on old ships and new ships, and you've been in the industry long enough to see a lot of the old ships have sort of been phased out for newer ships. But there are a lot of old ships that are still in the industry that are legacy ships, and they're not going anywhere for reasons, right? I think I would love to hear your guys' input. I have my take on things. I would love to hear. Sarah, go ahead.
I feel like we all have our takes. I'm not sure if I should give my take.
No, I want to hear it. People want to know.
Well, so I'm a little nostalgic for the old ships in a way, because when I started out, a lot of the ships were Russian icebreakers that had bunk beds and shared bathrooms, and the stairs were like ladders between the floors. So it was very mobility. It excluded people if you didn't have good mobility. So, and those were tiny ships, and we loved them, but it was not fun to go over the Drake Passage on them at all. So the old ships, I think, are a great way if you want the real expedition experience. Like if you're looking for a ship that's going to be a smaller ship, usually that's going to offer you expedition activities, adventure activities, and you really just want to be out there and what the real deal, I think an older ship can be a great option. But if you want a little bit more amenities, a little smoother ride, then going for a newer ship could be a better option.
Mm-hmm.
Go
And
old.
here's the thing that like the amenities do, which not a lot of people realize, is if you have the amenities, then you're kind of drawn to these different places. You're drawn to, the huge set of movies that's on the TV in your cabin, or you're drawn to, whatever spa experience is happening. On these older ships, you find that the camaraderie on board is excellent because no one has anything else to do except sit there and talk to each other. You're stuck on a boat like for 9 days together, and you're all this subset of humanity that has this very specific interest in coming down to the Antarctic, and you often make these really good friendships, and often the bar is a little livelier, and it can be really fun, and that's what I really like about the old ships, and it's not like you're not going to find that on a new ship, but there are less new ships now that do that as well as the old ships used to do almost universally.
And while I would love Nikki's input because it's always really beneficial, she's only ever been on bougie ships. So she has no experience on an older ship. She's only been on X-Bows before. And then what were you on when... Yeah, Hondius is your oldest ship, really. And Hondius is considered a new ship.
So I was on the Ocean Albatross, the Sylvia Earle, and the Hondius. So
and I think
I've had pretty smooth sailing.
But the Hondius, so here's a question for you, Nikki. Was the Hondius vibe different from the more luxury ships, like Phil was saying? Because there's no jacuzzi, there's not a gym. Were there more people in the bar at night? Was it more of that kind of vibe?
Our trip in particular, not really, because there were so many people that were birders, and so a lot of the the things revolved around their specific groups.
Right.
A little cliquey, you would say, right? A little cliquey, a little more subdued. And
go to bed early, get up early.
Yeah, it was definitely more of an early to bed, early to rise kind of crowd at first. And as that trip was supposed to be 34 days turned into 40. And as the time went on, we were having more socialization throughout. But it wasn't totally different than the other two trips that I went on. And it was also so much longer, so it's really hard to compare because it's the difference between a 19-day and a 34-day and a 9-day trip.
For sure.
Right.
And I'll say when I worked on the Hondius, I think that certain companies, and Sarah, you'll agree on this, certain companies attract a certain demographic based on where they're being marketed, what their price points are. And I just find like companies like G Adventures, Oceanwide, they've always attracted a younger demographic. And I'm not saying a bunch of 20-year-olds, but I'm saying, those mid 30s to late 40s, that kind of generation where there are people at happy hour. There are people taking advantage of the drink specials. There's a little bit of a raw camaraderie crowd on it, where certain companies might get a little bit more of a, like a European crowd where it might be a little more formal, a little bit of pinkies out, sort of thing. And nothing against Australian or Europeans. And then you have certain companies like Aurora who might attract a couple more Australians, and the Australians can burn the bar down, until keep the bartenders there late at night. So
universally, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the ship doesn't have a lot to do with that. I think it's more of where the company markets. But my other input on it will be that there are certain companies that, regardless of the age of their ship, they have a lane that they stick in. So you have certain companies that have brand new ships that you would think, okay, they're going to be luxury, they're going to be fancy, but they're still expedition companies in their roots. They just have fancier ships, right? This is what Albatross was, and they're now obviously Polar Latitudes. I think this is what Quark falls into, where it's an adventure company that's focusing on the expedition side, but they're offering newer, more comfortable ships with a little bit of flair and a little bit of luxury, right? That would be what it is. And it doesn't mean you're going to get necessarily a better expedition experience on land and in Zodiac cruises because you're on an older rustic ship, but you will find that these older ships, like Phil was mentioning, there's a little more of there's like a rustic vibe to it, and like Sarah was saying, there's a little bit more of a expeditionary nostalgic to it. But for example, an older ship like the Sea Spirit, they've gone through a brand new refit. Everything on board is new. It is super high end in terms of food. Yeah. They use sea chefs, so their food is high end. Hospitality is high end. They are a luxury product on an older ship. That doesn't mean it's not just because it's an older ship doesn't make it any less luxurious than a newer ship. It just might not have, it has a hot tub, but it doesn't have a pool like the Diana. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But it's nice and small. There's always trade-offs, right. And there definitely are ships and companies out there that offer the luxury on board, and they still offer the expedition. They don't have to exclude one another. But I just think that the industry has grown so much. There are so many different ships that there's just you have a lot of variety as you go down. Like it depends on what you're looking for to find something that fits.
Can I make the case for new ships really quick? Because I feel like we've highlighted the old ships a little bit here.
Yeah.
But with new ships, generally speaking, you're going to have a bit more available to you in terms of the amenities, in terms of like the maybe some of the tech in the cabins that you see, or tech around the ship. But one of the things that really strikes me when you talk about the new ships is just the advances in like the stabilizers on board. So you generally have a more stable ride, and the X-bows are really good at that. The whole design behind an X-bow is to diffuse wave energy, to either side of the bow rather than taking it head on. So it's designed for a more stable ride for the guests. And the other thing I'll say for new ships is that the fuel economy is so much better. If you're going down Antarctica and you're looking for a trip that reduces your footprint, it's an important conversation because these are carbon heavy trips, and a lot of people do want to look at what kind of fuel expenditure am I having. A lot of people are really conscious around that. The fuel burn between, say, an X-bow and some of the older ships is pronounced, and that's definitely a mark in the new ship benefit column. Just from my viewpoint from an operations side, this is really something that is a huge advancement in the industry, and a lot of the newer ships that are coming out are really focusing on that. That's a real focal point for companies, and it's something that you'll see them drive advertising towards. We're introducing hybrid fuels, we're using alternative fuels. There have been some trials done on that recently. So if that's a consideration for you, then the newer ship is likely where you're going to end up after a little bit of research.
And just to piggyback on that, also, they're faster too, right? So they can move from site to site faster. It gives you, it kind of gives you more time in a way, because they can more efficiently go faster from one place to another. So you kind of get a pretty good benefit with that, in addition to being a bit greener.
And I'll make a case for new ships too. I got nothing against new ships. I'll make one is that a lot of the older ships are repurposed research vessels or other types of ships. They weren't built for expedition cruising. They were then later converted. So these newer ships that were designed specifically with polar cruising in mind, you get incredible observation areas like sky lounges and big panoramic views up with big glass windows on upper decks. You're going to have usually maybe 2 cranes versus 1 crane. You're going to have 2 disembarkation doors versus 1 point. So the operation runs a lot more efficiently. Even though you're carrying more people, you've got 2 or even 3 cranes dropping Zodiacs. You got ships that have like they have garages of Zodiacs, and they spit them out like a Pez dispenser. Like the boats are out in a minute.
Yeah.
Like it's so
It's
fast.
amazing. It's incredible.
It's wild. You've got more space for crew. You've got more space for expedition guides. So you're getting larger teams, where you might get 8 or 9, 10 guides on a smaller, older ship. You're going to get 21 guides sometimes. That's more diversity in your educational repertoire. You're going to have a lot more scientific backgrounds to work with. You're going to have more just crew available in general. The more crew per passenger, it's always better for everybody on board. There's a lot of cases to be made besides the stabilizers and the luxury feel. There's all these other things, right? A lot of the newer ships will have like universal chargers in their rooms, or like universal outlets in the room, where on older ships, you got to bring a converter, you need all this stuff. So there's cases for both sides of it. And I don't know if I would focus so much on the ship yet in your planning phases. I would first start to look at, we went over this in the past, sort of the order of operations, itinerary you want to go on, time of year you want to go, price point. Figure out those 3 first. And then once you have a bunch of, a handful of ships and a handful of companies on your table, then you start talking to myself, my team, Sarah, her team. And then we'll start giving you the advantages to to one or the other. But the old ship versus new ship wouldn't be a deciding factor for me. I would go no matter what, because whatever ship is available for what I'm looking for, because they're all going to have their own merits, right? If you really want to do a helicopter ride, like, you got to go with, there's only 2 ships that you can take that with, right? There are certain limiting factors. If you want to scuba dive, there's only a handful of ships to do scuba diving. So there are going to be limiting factors that might not even give you the choice between new versus old. So don't stress too much on new versus old, but hopefully we covered some of the points that you wanted us to go over. Can anybody in the chat, can we get some more questions in the chat, please? Because we're going through the questions we have on the forums. Here's a good one for you, Sarah. What are some unexpected or unanticipated costs that people might incur on their trips?
I get this question a lot, and there aren't as many as you think. I think people see cruise and they're like, oh, there's going to be all these hidden costs. And there aren't. No. I mean, you need to obviously read about the trip you're taking from your travel agent and see what's included and what's not. But, the only things you're going to pay extra for, depending on the ship, would be if you need more Wi-Fi or you want to do laundry on board. There aren't going to be taxes and fees notched on, nothing like that. Keep in mind, at the end, tips are, they're not required, but they are expected. And some ships now put them on automatically if you don't ask for it not to be. So, like, you want to keep an eye out for tips. But there's not some weird, like, port charge or ship fee or anything like that that's going to jump out at you.
Nikki, you are a budget-minded traveler. Your whole travel content is based off of, here's how much I spent today. And that's literally the word I'm looking for. That's how you post your videos. What you know better than anybody else. What kind of things are unexpected? I have one thing that's going to be maybe unexpected or unanticipated, and we'll get to it afterwards, but I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, no, I think Sarah absolutely nailed it. The only considerations that may cost extra that I can think of are Wi-Fi, laundry, alcohol if it's not included in the trip that you choose. That's like all that I've ever spent money on once I get on the boat.
You could literally say to somebody, if your trip to Antarctica costs $9,999, you could go theoretically for exactly $999.
Yes. And insurance. Insurance is the only other thing.
Right? And let's hypothetically say somebody has an annual policy, right? That's one cost. And some companies even include the insurance. But like Sarah said, gratuities are optional. In theory, obviously, we want everybody to support the crew. They work really, really hard to do it.
You're going to want to pay your gratuity, though. Once you go on that trip, you're going to want to put tips in.
If you did not drink alcohol, you did not want a tip, you did not buy Wi-Fi, and you did not do any laundry, you could literally walk on and off that ship for the exact price that you paid, plus obviously flights and hotels and stuff like that. But there's no overweight luggage charge. There's no hidden fees. It is literally so transparent. But there is one thing that has come up in the past, and it may potentially come up again.
Yes.
The fuel surcharge.
Fuel surcharge.
So this is something that it happened in 2021. Mm-hmm. I believe it's 2021, 22 season. The 21-22 season, right? That was the first season after COVID. Fuel went dramatically through the roof. And if everybody were to read through their contracts, that their conditions of carriage, they're all going to have a potential fuel surcharge in the terms and conditions. That fuel charge cannot, yes. Oh, Ricardo's in the group chat. Hi. So, yes, this can happen. And it happened in the 21-22 season, and it hasn't happened since. And we are seeing a fuel increase right now. And there has been an implemented fuel surcharge for the 26 Arctic season. With just not every company does it.
Every company has,
Yep, Steve said it got hit with a fuel surcharge a few months prior to departure, November 2022. Oh, so maybe it did last a little. Maybe it was 22-23 season.
Yeah, 21-22 barely happened.
And I mean, the fuel surcharge ended up being 21-22 happened for certain companies, but not everybody. You're right. It was a 22-23 season. Steve, do you remember what it is? I think it's like 30. Every company was a little bit different, but it was about $30 a day, $30 to $45 a day, I think was about standard, which if you're on a 10-day trip, you're looking at about $400-ish, $500 fuel surcharge. If you're on the longer trip, it burns a little bit more, but that would be the only potential the only potential additional cost that I wouldn't have anticipated. Obviously, there are things that are told to you ahead of time: camping, kayaking, snowshoeing. These are all additional costs, but these are all given to you ahead of time. There isn't like when you go on a cruise ship and you're stepping on the vessel and there's this backdrop of an iceberg with a penguin and a photographer takes a photo of you and then sells it to you for $185.
I was just going to say.
No, we were just went on a cruise for my aunt's birthday, and my wife did the indoor skydiving thing. And the photographer got like 10 photos of her. And for 3 printed photos, it was $65. And I said, no, I don't want the 3 printed photos. I'd rather just have the digital ones. And it was $135 for 3 digital photos. And I said, the logic makes absolutely no sense. I mean, the logic makes sense for them because everybody wants the digital photos. And I would have loved to have that photo of my wife, but on sheer principle, I was like, I can afford $135 for these photos in this memory, but on sheer principle, I walk away.
I'm not doing it.
No. And like, they were like, okay, sorry, no problem. And I mean, like, you would think at the same time, they'd be like, okay, fine, we'll do it for $60 because that's $60 that they wouldn't have had anyway, Sorry, that's a little, I digress because I'm just, it's a trigger subject for me. But there is nobody on the ship who's selling you your photos or anything like that. That's not the case. So there's really no other anticipated cost.
Most ships, you're going to get a lot of photos at the end of it anyway. Totally. Which is great.
Yep. Yeah.
Not extra cost.
They're not charging you $10 for a bridge visit. They're not, there's your Zodiac driver for the day isn't sitting there with like a coffee can asking you for tips at the end of your Zodiac ride. Although I feel like what they're paying us these days, we should. So
no money changing hands during the trip at all.
Next question. Everybody good with that? Everybody good with that answer?
Yeah.
Steve was saying it was $40-$45 range, so a bit $540 extra.
Wow.
I'm traveling to Antarctica October 2027. What are weather conditions there this time of year? Can I expect a rough seas during the Drake Passage? We discussed this in our very first episode, but we can touch on it a little bit. Phil, do you want to just give us a very brief, what do you think October 2027 in Antarctica is going to look like? And is there any way to expect a rough Drake Passage?
Yeah. I would say your chances of getting a weather system across the Drake are probably a little bit increased. Your days are going to be shorter. Therefore, it's going to be a little bit colder. You're going to have more snow on the ground. Usually these October trips stop by South Georgia. So you're going to have a bit of time at sea. If that's your trip, then I would say you're probably going to have a day or two where it's moving pretty good. But the upshot of it is that it's beautiful Antarctica, just absolutely pristine. If you do go to South Georgia, you get snow on the ground, which just dramatically changes the landscape, and it's stunning. But I would pack a couple extra layers, and I would definitely look into, say, something like scopolamine or Dramamine if you have trouble getting scopolamine, and just being ready for some movement on the boat. Anything else you'd want to add to that?
No,
I love early season. I love early season.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's pristine. It's beautiful. There's lots of snow. Big early season fan. And you can get a weather system on the Drake any time of the year.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we had really bad February. February last season was really bad. They had a bunch of ships couldn't leave, or late January, I think it was. A couple ships couldn't leave. Yeah. I think Mortimer was stuck, and then I think Ocean Victory came home a little early. We had I think that's it. It's going to be a little bit colder. Just pack a couple extra layers. Maybe bring, I like to do inner gloves and outer gloves if it gets really, really cold when you're sitting in the Zodiacs, like just jogging gloves on top of good gloves. Other than that, no, that was pretty much it.
You know what people like is the heated gloves, and you get like heated vests and heated pants and socks. People love that. And if you're sitting on a Zodiac cruise, I think especially that is a place where those things can really shine. The heated materials, I think it's cheating, but you're welcome to go through and
what's
do
funny
that anyway.
That you say that. I'll never forget the first time I ever saw heated gloves. You know where they were?
I know exactly where they were.
You want to say it or should I?
Oh yeah, my wife got them for herself. as an expedition guide. And I'd done it for years without ever even knowing heated gloves existed. And then she busts these out, and I was a little jealous, but I remained staunchly in my corner of just like wearing wet gloves in the cold. And and I might have a little bit of frostbite, but you know what? I stuck to my principles, and that's what counts.
I got my wife a heated puffy jacket. We haven't used it for the season yet, but when it came in, I plugged it in, I charged it in, I called her up to the office, and I was like, "Hey, try this on, see if it fits." And she put it on. She goes, "Wow, this thing's really toasty." And it took a minute for it to click, and she was like, "Is this thing heated?" I was like, I've never seen her happier.
It honestly,
and you saw her at my wedding.
Is so happy. Yeah.
So, no, that's about it. What type of fuel does the ship use? And the follow-up question was, will prices increase due to the oil prices? So I will rephrase, because we did discuss the fuel surcharge. Will prices increase due to oil prices? Season after season, yes. That's just how the industry has been trending. And it's not just the oil price at the bunker. Bunker is the fuel, essentially, delivery in the ports. Obviously, when fuel prices go up, everything in the world goes up. So the cost of transportation for your crew and your expedition guides, the cost of supply of your provisions, your food deliveries, your fuel, the fuel delivery itself, not just the fuel itself. Obviously the fuel to run the ship, the fuel to run the generators, like all that stuff becomes more expensive. And because of it, prices are going to go up. That's just, we talk about this, Sarah, you and I, we probably talk about this to our clients all the time. Nikki, I'm sure this is always coming up with you. Well, I might be waiting next season, and where maybe the prices will come down a little bit. So it's not coming down. It's just going to get more and more.
That way.
We talked about it in our episode. They're going up about 5 to 8% a year. Somewhere around there is about the increase in price per season, and obviously compounds over time. The $6,000 trip is no longer around. It's now an $8,000 trip. The average price of trips, Sarah, what did you guys see for last season?
I think, even looking at the last minutes, they were, well above 7,000, even for the last minute deals. It's just crept up post pandemic, and I don't think it's going back down, because there's just a lot of demand for the industry.
And we're seeing sold out. I had lunch with our sales rep from Polar Latitudes yesterday, and we were talking about how they're sold. Like, we're not going to see these crazy last minute deals, and they're selling with these increased prices. So, if you're listening or watching, it's not going to get any cheaper. I would book sooner than later if cost conscious. I'm scared to see where the industry goes. I mean, it's obviously going to reach a cap because it's going to price out too much of the market. But for right now, it's not pricing out what they're filling them. So, fuel. Phil, you want to talk about the fuel?
Yeah, it's usually marine grade fuel. It's a fuel specific for ships, and you have different ships using different kinds of fuel. You have heavy fuels that are used on some of the older ships, and some of the newer ships are using more economical, greener fuels. And that's part of where the reduction in emissions comes from, is their ability to use some of those more advanced fuels to power the ships themselves. And some ships are going into electric diesel engines as well. So that definitely helps with the fuel economy there. But you have a couple of different fuel types that are being used across the fleet. It's not anything I actually know a ton about. So if you guys have some insight on that, it's great, but I haven't really dug into when fuels are used and where.
There's a lot of research being done. Yeah, the future of fuels. I know IATA is working hard. There's a group working on the future of fuels and what fuels they can get in Argentina, but that's about the extent of my knowledge.
And that's the problem, right? It's not that these fuels aren't out there. Like biofuels exist, but can you get them in the ports where these ships are fueling up? You have this industry that's really focused on the environment and conservation, but they leave from these really remote places by design because you're going to the polar regions. But it's really hard to get these fuels in these spots, and there's a lot of work being done in places like Chile and Argentina to begin to get this stuff. But it's it's a work in progress, but the demand is there, which is awesome, just through the industry.
And when you say the demand is there, I just want people to understand that we don't calculate fuel burn on a ship in miles per gallon. We calculate it in metric tons per day, per hour, really. A normal ship transiting the Drake on one of the more fuel efficient ships is somewhere between 11 and 13 tons a day, metric tons of fuel. And if you want to know what a metric ton of fuel looks like, it's a meter by a meter by a meter cubed. It's a lot of fuel. So, the only thing I can add to it is that basically this marine fuel is just, it's because of the conditions that they're in, they tend to develop microorganisms that grow in the fuel because it is a biodiesel. So a lot of that fuel is just treated for the development of any sort of microorganisms that fuel like that could clog up injectors and stuff like that. It's really nothing super special. Same stuff I buy at the port over here if it's diesel. All right, we got what are each of your favorite times to sail? I know there are different seasons on the continent and each have their own pros, cons, but what are your favorites and why? Nikki, you've been a few different times throughout the year. Let's hear from you.
So I've only been to Antarctica once so far. Only, God, what a... I've been to South Georgia twice. I've only been once.
Rough life.
My best friend came to Antarctica twice. And we joked about how he would go on dates and he would say like, oh, well, when I went to Antarctica, and they go, oh my God, you've been to Antarctica. And then like now that he's been twice, he goes, well, the first time I went to Antarctica, and it's like, it's a whole different, it changes the sentence altogether. So
for sure. For sure.
Different level.
For sure.
Good. So tell us.
Yeah, I really liked I went in December on my first trip and then April on my second trip. And I think I liked December a little bit more only because we got really, really, really lucky with the weather and it was like hot. It was warmer. I was on Antarctica on New Year's Eve and it was warmer in Antarctica than it was at my parents' house in New Hampshire. Like I was in a sports bra and waterproof pants laying on the continent and that was very cool to me. So I really liked my December trip.
Phil?
That's a little scary that it's that warm.
Yeah, keep in mind, you've got opposite seasons happening there. So it is winter in New Hampshire and summer in the Antarctic. So it does even out a little bit.
It's still Antarctica.
It's still
Antarctica. It's like
I hear you. No, it's a really relevant point.
Phil, you have a favorite time, I'm sure. We talked about this.
You know, like call me a little masochistic, but I really like the shoulder seasons because you get to see Antarctica in these like special states. Early season's great because you got that like really pristine look to it, and you know, seeing a snow white continent and snow white landings and getting penguins coming on shore for the first time is absolutely brilliant. Some of my best memories, and I like the end of the season too, and I like it because you just get this huge uptick in wildlife. You get great light for the photography, and you get moon rises and sunsets and all of that, and I think it's just stunning. Days are a bit shorter, so you know that's okay. And I actually like seeing stormy Antarctica. I actually like seeing, you know, a big system rip through and just like feel it and drive in a little bit of swell and all of that. I as a guide and just a bit of a nerd. I think that stuff is really cool too. Just to see the forces that shape the continent.
Phil's making me want to go back to Antarctica. It's been too long.
Yeah, Sarah. Yeah.
Sarah, go ahead.
So I'm a wildlife person, and I think my favorite time is February because I love the penguin chicks when they're kind of getting out of the nest and they're like yelling at their mom and they're running around and they're just crazy. I have amazing memories of that. It was also my first trip was in February a long time ago. And then you also have whales. So I find that toward the end of the season, you don't have it. It's not as pristine, but if you want wildlife, like action, you want like, you know, Nat Geo video style, you get it all. You get the leopard seals trying to get the baby penguins. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I'm
with Phil and Sarah. I like it all. No,
I know. So well, that's the thing. It's a hard question, right?
Yeah. So I would, when I first started working as a guide, I feel like I always took the early contracts because I had I was so ready to go. I had like FOMO So I was like, I just want the earliest trips. I need to be there. I need to go right now. And I did so many early seasons, November, December, get off like mid-January. And then I would come back like end of Feb and I would work through March. And for some reason, March just always stuck out to me. And I get the allure of the baby penguin chicks in that January, February stage where they're in the nests and they're being fed and they're being born and people want to see that. But I love the late season whale interactions. That's predominantly because I drive more than I ever go on land now. I feel like the last 5 seasons I've been in Antarctica, I maybe stepped on land like 5 or 6 times because I just love being in the zodiacs. And you get a little bit more of, atmospheric, I like to call it. And I think I took that word from you, Phil. It's more atmospheric in the end of the season. You get a little bit more overcast. And a lot of people say like, oh, I want blue skies. I want warm weather. And it's like, you didn't book a trip to Tahiti. You get a little bit more cloudy skies, and those cloudy skies lead to much bluer ice, which we can talk about in an entire episode. There's a whole science reasoning behind it, but cloudy skies, bluer ice, more whale interactions. I think that they've all sort of settled in. They're used to the zodiacs. They're a little more curious. I think the leopard seals are a huge attraction as well. We talked about that. The feeding leopard seals are cool. I also, and I think we mentioned it, but we might have removed it from the episode because that was too much information. I'm going to say this from a guide perspective and a passenger perspective. When you go later in the season, like mid-February on to like March, you're going with a team of guides who have been working together all season long. A lot of them, have just come back because they do a split season, but a lot of them have been working together for a long time. And I think that the operation is just running so smooth. There's a lot of morale on the team. There's a lot of group cohesiveness, and you can see that from an operational standpoint. Everyone knows their roles and everybody knows what they're doing by the end of the season. A lot of times, first early parts of the season, there's a little bit of like shaking out some of the cobwebs for a lot of these expedition guides and maybe miss a step here and there. And that's just any industry you work in. But the guides are all juiced up at the end of the season, ready to be out there on the whales, and they're having fun. They know the end of the season's coming up, so I really like that mid-February, like all the way into March. And I would even say like from like March 12th, 13th, 14th on, it's a great time of year to go. I think so. And it's the off season, the shoulder season.
People say to me, I'm not going to see any penguins. And I'm like, yeah, you are.
You're going to see heaps of penguins.
They're out there. Yeah.
And Sarah, from our standpoint, you're going to save a lot of money when you go in March. You're going to save 20 or 30%. And that's just on the retail price because we see more last minute deals, more generous last minute deals to the end of March than we do because everybody used their PTO early in the season. They went during the holidays, so we mentioned this with Phil. It's an off season because of people's availability to go, not because it's any worse of a time to visit. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my answer. Steve goes, I realize it's not a fair question. No, Steve, it's a great question because we're coming from between Phil and I and, as guides, somewhere around 200 trips together as guides. Sarah adding another 10 years of experience and having been in Antarctica a whole bunch. And it's a great question because it might give you guys a little bit more of an unfiltered answer versus asking ChatGPT or Googling or reading a blog post from one person who's been one time to tell you when to go to Antarctica. So I appreciate the question.
I also think it's interesting that everyone had a different answer, and that just goes to show that there is no best time. It's just what's best for you and what you are going to enjoy.
Totally. Cassandra asked, what is Georgia Island, South Georgia, like in mid-February? Cassandra, we just released an episode on Thursday breaking down all of South Georgia through each month. We'll touch on it very quickly. Is that mid-February in South Georgia is going to be awesome for fur seal pups, and you're going to have you're going to start getting sunrises and sunsets again around there because you're a little further north. So I think you'll start getting some more golden hour over there. The male fur seals will have chilled out a little bit by then, so it'll be a little calmer. And then the elephant seals will pretty much have all been gone. There'll be some subadults still hanging around, and King king penguin chicks will be around. They're always around. And I believe, Phil, that's sort of right around the molt.
For the elephant seals?
No, king penguin molt.
For they molt a couple times a year. And I think you're right for February. Yeah. I'd have to go back and check my notes on that one to be completely fair. But to add to that, you're looking at a super walkable South Georgia. You don't have a ton of snow on the hills. So if you're looking for an active South Georgia trip, first of all, look at how much time you're spending there. If you have 3 days, then you're probably not going to be doing a lot of these bigger walks, but there's some cool ones that are available given the conditions and the rest. And February is a great time to go strolling around the hills of South Georgia. Really kind of an epic thing. And it's an opportunity you don't really get when you're on the peninsula. So if you're looking for big walks and hikes and a bit of adventure that way, a South Georgia trip in February is a good way to go.
That kind of sums up February in South Georgia. It's a great time to go. I think Phil and I did a trip together. Remember the first seal pops where we just took the Zodiacs. We had a little landing. Oh, it's great. It's honestly if you're going in mid-February, take the opportunity. Don't focus on the penguins for your entire trip. Just focus on the first seal pups. They're adorable. As we called them in the last episode, like Nikki said, there are little demons. I refer to them as little chihuahuas. Little.
Yep.
Phil, how did you, we're coming up on 50 minutes. I think we're going to let this episode go for about an hour 15. I don't want to take up too much time on this one. We have a couple more questions. How did you end up becoming a guide?
That's a great question. And what you're going to find around the industry is that answer varies a lot. So I can tell you my story, but it's going to be different from everybody else's, and everybody else's is different from, the folks that they work with. My path to guiding happened. It started in California. One of my very first jobs when I was in high school was as a kayak guide, like really low key summer job. And I went to university and started guiding at a national park. Was lucky enough to work with a really great outfit in the Channel Islands National Park called Channel Islands Expeditions. Super recommend those guys if you guys are into adventurous stuff close to home if you're on the West Coast. And then I started working on small ships directly after university in Alaska, in Southeast Alaska, for a little company called Uncruise Adventures. And I did that up north and down south. And this great friend of mine, she had a partner who they worked together in Antarctica running a kayak program. Her partner was staying back for a season and she needed a kayak guide last minute. And I literally got a call. I remember where I was. I remember the day I was on a ship in Alaska, finishing the season. And I got a call from someone who's really turned into a mentor for me. And she asked me, "Hey, Phil, you've been recommended for this job. Can you be in Antarctica?" It's like, "Yeah, absolutely. Can you be there in 2 weeks?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." It took me about 30 seconds to completely change my entire life. And, that instigated a lot of change for me personally. But I went down to Antarctica and was down there for probably 3 months in my first contract. I didn't know that was a long time, but it was a long time. And and then was just hooked. It was just this absolute portal to another dimension. And I got down there and saw the caliber of operations and the guides I was working with. I was working with legends in the industry, and I felt it as soon as I got there, almost a little bit of imposter syndrome. But they were really good at bringing me on board, and ended up working with that company for years. And it was honestly one of the best decisions of my life, and I ended up meeting my wife, and it's done a lot for me. And I'm now firmly in the industry. But a lot of people come at this from an educational perspective. They have their PhDs in a subject and come down as lecturers, or they're highly specialized guides like dive guides or alpine guides. And some people really want to do it. Like Amanda, my wife, had this passion to go work with penguins ever since she was a kid, and she went and did it. But for me, it was just a random question one day, and I happened to say yeah. So there's lots of pathways into it.
We get asked a lot about how to become a guide, and it's a hard answer because just tell everybody, what can you provide to enhance the guest experience? And you don't necessarily have to have a specialty in it. I didn't when I started in the industry. So sort of like Phil, it was sort of just by chance. I was in the military for 10 years. I got out. I was going to school. The government shut down and they couldn't pay my GI Bill, and I didn't have money for the tuition. So I started backpacking around South America with what money I had left. I found a crazy last minute deal to Ushuaia. I went as a guest. Should
have booked with me.
Everybody else did on that trip. So
I know.
I was so anti-travel agent back then. So it's
then
so
our
funny
story
that
would be complete, Neil. Our
it would
story
be amazing. But it starts when I met your parents. When I met your parents on the rock for the first time. Yeah. So
I booked with Sarah. I booked my first trip with Sarah.
I met Sarah's parents on a rock at Taurus or in El Chalten, just hiking. Yeah. And, what do you do? What are you doing down here? We're visiting our daughter in Ushuaia. She wants trips to Antarctica. Oh, I've been there before. And then I messaged Sarah. I was like, I want to sell some trips.
It's a small world.
Small world. But I went to Antarctica for the first time as a guest. I paid for a last minute deal. Went with a couple of people I was traveling with at the time. Fell in love with it. Couldn't afford to go again. And my Instagram at the time had been blowing up, and I had gotten Adobe had done an article about us. About me. By us, it was me and my dog I was traveling with. Adobe did an article with us, and they wanted me to do like some live streaming from Antarctica, and just then Wi-Fi had started getting on the ships, and they posted about me, which got me a larger audience. So I got a comp trip to go on a trip with Poseidon again and do some photography stuff for them. And then I had brought, 5 or 6 people on that trip through Instagram. Then they had another trip to South Georgia. It was the October one that I always talk about, the 20-day South Georgia only trip. I used my influence to sort of build a bigger audience for that trip, brought a whole bunch of people there. And then one person from that company had moved to another company. They had moved over to Oceanwide, and they were looking to build a very robust photography program on that ship. And I was a photographer at the time. And I got a phone call that asked, I'll never forget, Charles Jacobson. He's no longer there. He's working at IACO, last I heard. But he called me and he offered me a photography workshop job on board the Hondius. But the ship was still 2 years from being built. So they put me on the Ortelius for a couple trips beforehand. And my first couple trips as a guide did not go well. It was a little young. It was a little cocky. It was a little bit of a pompous jerk back then. I was surprised I got hired.
Neil.
I was surprised I got hired back. But I fell into it. I was always looking for a way to get back to Antarctica, and I was looking for a way to do it without having to pay for it because I didn't have any money at the time. And I was a photography guide for the first 2 seasons. And then I transitioned. I did a lot of learning. I did a lot of studies. I transitioned from photography guide into general naturalist. That was a lot of my own off-season reading and research, and then attending every single lecture that was being given on board. Just kind of came like a generalized, knowledge knower. What's the word I'm looking for? A little jack of all trades, but master of none. But I'll never forget the reason. Knower. Yeah, a knowledge knower. So I drink and I know things. I'll never forget the reason I wanted to transition from photographer to naturalist was because I was on board and we had our pinniped expert, SEALs, they weren't feeling well and they had got the flu or something, and they were down for a few days, and we needed to do a SEAL recap. And I just said, hey, I could put together a lecture really quick. And one girl looked at me and she goes, you're just a photographer. And it was like a punch in the gut. And I was like,
yeah,
I totally did. I could do it, right? I got tons of photos and everything. It felt very like I wanted to be more a part of the educational program of it. I wanted to get more involved in the citizen science side of things. I wanted to get more involved in the conservation, preservation side of the polar regions. And you can do that with photography, but not as well as if you can teach other things. So, I kind of got really lucky. I got a phone call one day that just, like Phil, just completely and totally changed the trajectory of my life. That's a very long story condensed into 4 minutes because for the sake of the show.
I think it illustrates something really important though, Neil, and just from the guide perspective for those guys that are interested in following this as a career path. It by the way, it is developing into more of a career than it ever has been. Right.
Sure.
There's industry, bodies now and organizations that are there, really trying to create a baseline for what guides are in the Antarctic and the Arctic and just polar guiding in general. So that's been an incredibly positive advancement, and that's stemming from a couple of key individuals in the industry that have really driven that forward. But what you're saying is true. You can get into the industry and have whatever foothold. You can be a specialist or, a guest speaker on something, but then it is what you make of it. I started out as a kayak guide and then became a lecturer and then, stepped into leadership roles after that. And if you have the interest and the ability to put this stuff together, then you can just make of it what you want to. And there are no defined roles, not really, on board, because everyone wears all these different hats. Yeah, I like your story, Neil, and it echoes some of what I did too.
Just I'm gonna mute you, Sarah. I can hear your keyboard, Sarah. No, I'm just kidding.
My from school, and there's all things happening that I can hear downstairs.
We're gonna wrap it up here. Don't worry, we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute. I'm just giving you a hard time. No, like Phil said, if you're interested in becoming a guide, I mean, definitely we should do an episode, I think, about it, Phil. That'd be great. Maybe get a couple of other guides on and just kind of discuss our paths. And if you're interested in it, what kind of things do you need to, do. When I started guiding, you didn't need a Zodiac license. You didn't need STCW. You didn't need any of these things. I got a medical exam and that was it, right? There are a lot of people think you can just jump into it. And I'll just touch on this really quick. We get a lot of messages that say things like, hey, I've worked on ships my whole life. I can't afford a trip to Antarctica. Can I work on board for a trip? And a couple of things that we need to mention on that, Sarah, I'm sure you get this all the time.
Oh yeah.
One, no one's going to hire anybody for one trip. They want you there for 4, 5, 6 trips, right? You can't just come in, work a trip and go home. Second off, people who are saying things like, I can make beds, I can clean dishes, all stuff. What do you think you're doing when all the guests are on board? You're making beds, you're turning over rooms, you're washing plates and doing dishes. And there's all these things that come along with it. You have to be STCW qualified because the person who's making your bed is also part of the firefighting team, is also part of the man overboard team. It's not like you just hop on a ship in the middle of the ocean, go work a day, like 8 days, and then come home. There are a lot of requirements and qualifications and certificates that you need. There's a lot of training. Every time I do a season, I have to do my IATO exams. There's cybersecurity exams we have to do, sexual harassment seminars. Like we have to attend all of these diversity in the workplace seminars. There's all these things that come along with being a part of an expedition team and working on board ships. So it's not impossible if you want to make it, like Phil said, a career. And if you want to do it for a season, like that's totally a thing too. People do it for a season. They feel cool about it. They got it out of the way. But you got to commit 40 days, 60 days to being away from home, and you have limited Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So it's a glamorous job. I'm not going to say it's not, but there's stuff that comes along with it.
Oh, it's work. It's work
for sure.
There's
you
two
don't have a day
sides to it.
off. There's no day off. Like you are
work so hard
from 6 a.m. until 9 p.m. You have to put your face on every single day. There are no bad days. There are no, you see people on your team who are dealing with, you can't, you have to be there, and you'll be away and you'll get messages from your family. God forbid there's a health crisis in your family, or there's some drama or something going on, or you and your partner back home are not doing so well. You can't have a bad day on these ships because you have to bring it every single day, because these guests will feed off of your energy. And if you're on a Zodiac cruise driving people around and you're sulking and you're being a sourpuss, they're going to feel that, and that's going to ruin their $10,000 trip, So there is a lot to it. And I talk about this all the time because obviously I'm very outgoing and I'm very personable. I have bad days too, but every time I leave my cabin, I have to put on the face. I'm the entertainer on board. I do the recaps. I do the question box. So it's definitely a challenging profession to be in from a personal standpoint. Also, Phil, you got something really eager to say.
Yeah. Thank you for recognizing that, because I do want to say this. there's so many motivations for doing this, right? And for us being down in the place and going and doing this is so rewarding because we get those little moments by ourselves where we're out in nature. And, Neil, that Zodiac cruise you and I had, like looking at those fur seal pups, for instance, like those are moments that no one else really gets to have because you're putting yourself in this position to be just wowed by these landscapes and by the wildlife and all of that. But some of the most special things that I've encountered as a guide are really personal things. You get people that come down and really enjoy these places, and you have people that say to you, wow, Phil, thank you for the Zodiac cruise. I've been saving up for this trip for the last 15 years. Or, wow, Phil, thank you for such a great experience. Just so you know, this has been really important to us because this is our this is going to be our last trip together ever, as a family. And you hear the stuff and you understand that everyone has their own motivations for going down there. And some of these situations are really poignant, and that these trips have a lot of meaning and they can
Mm-hmm.
change people. And when you hear stuff like that, you realize that as a guide, you do have this responsibility to bring it, like you say, Neil, to bring it and be the best version of yourself. And sometimes it does mean compartmentalizing and shoving stuff aside, but you want to do it for the people that are on board because it is these are really special things for folks, and it can be really touching and motivating, and that's cool.
And I always say, because to that note, it's at the end of the day, it is a customer service job. Like it really is. And you are there for the passengers. And for people who haven't been before, you should know that most ships, all ships essentially have an expedition team and a hospitality team. So you're going to have 12 to 22 guides on your expedition team. And these are the people that are going to be in your Zodiacs on the landings, greeting you on shore. And then you have your hospitality team, your bartenders, your room stewards, your waiters. And you're going to interact with everybody, but it's your guides who are the ones that are doing the expedition side of things. And you're going to notice that there's obviously a difference. The hospitality team, just every single day, same thing with them though. They have personal lives at home. They have things going on and they have to take care of you and have to put the face on every single day. But you're always going to remember the expedition guides and how they made your trip. And I say that the expedition guides can make or break your trip. And nobody in the industry wants to break a trip. We all want to make sure that you have the absolute best. And I don't think that they realize that we touched on this in an early episode. When we have to cancel landings or we have to, we can't do certain expeditions, we can't go camping because of weather, we feel it just as hard as you do because we feel this responsibility to deliver on everything that you as a guest on our ship wants to experience. And we're like, I think that people have assume, oh, a canceled landing, that means the guide's get a day off. Dude, I want to be on land just as much as you do. I want to be in a Zodiac just as much as you do, if not more. Like, this is why I'm here. I'm giving up an entire life at home to be here for 100 days a year. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. I don't need a day off. Like, I'm totally fine. I want to be in there. And we are here for the guests, like 1,000%. That's the only reason we do what we do. And like Phil said, there's these moments with the guests that can really resonate and leave a mark forever. I'm going to get really teary eyed over this because Debbie Wagner, we talked about her on the show before. She's been on like 6 trips with us, but I dropped her off on shore and it was our continental landing. It was a beach about this, like it was this tiny, and I dropped her off on shore. It was our only continental landing opportunity, and I was driving my Zodiac away, and she had said, Neil, if it weren't for you, I would have never made it here. We had booked her, and she was in my Zodiac at the time. And I was like, Debbie, it's an absolute pleasure. I would have, thank you so much for the support. And I drove away and I'm bawling, freezing tears coming down my cheeks. We had another passenger who had messaged me about booking, and she had been using a walker. She had just, kind of let herself go a little bit, and she wasn't feeling stable on her own feet. She was using a walker and she wasn't sure if she could book a trip. And I was telling her how these trips they're curated for everybody to be able to do them. And she had about 12 to 14 months before her trip. And she used her trip as a motivation to no longer need her walker. she thought she used it as something to motivate her every day to work harder. And she came on the trip, no walker. And it's been 4 or 5 years since that trip. And now she is hiking through the Congo. She's doing all these crazy trips all around the world. She's been to the polar regions over and over again. And it's this opportunity you have to not just change our lives, but change our lives as well. And it's, guiding is it's to get back to the original question and stuff. If you're interested in being a guide, you really have to be in a position as a human being to want to fulfill this role in somebody else's life. It's not just show up, give some lectures, go home, collect a paycheck. There's so much more to it than that. And it's special. I really want to emphasize that. There was a very simple question that we went on a tangent for, but
big tangent. But it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I'm glad people hopefully. Yeah, can you see my watery eyes here?
Tugging on the heartstrings over there, Neil. Jeez, man. Yeah, shout out to Debbie though. Debbie and I crossed paths on a trip. Yeah.
Actually, one last thing that I was thinking about, and then I went off on that, is that the guide relationships too. Phil and I, we met working on a ship in 2021, and we've been so close ever since. Phil was a groomsman at my wedding. Every other groomsman I had on my what do you call it? My bridal party, I'd known them since I was kids, or at least 20 something years. And Phil was the newest person in my life, but there was nobody else I would have rather had. We just developed such a great friendship and relationship through working together on the ships. And you work on each other's lives. Like, we're parts of each other's lives. Phil named the podcast. I named his son, if you heard other episodes before.
I'm not sure it happened exactly like that, Neil, but okay. It is your podcast.
Go listen to the previous episodes. You'll
let it rip.
All right. Moving along. Okay. We got maybe we'll knock out 2 more questions and we'll wrap this one up.
Yep.
It's so hard to go into another topic after that, but we'll go back into this stuff. Nikki, what cabin types have you had? Oh, you've only had balcony cabins, haven't you?
No, on my last trip, I was in a porthole.
Okay. So the question is porthole cabin versus balcony cabin. And then Sarah, I'm going to have you weigh in on this one also. And Phil as well. If we can, let's keep this one sort of short.
Okay. I have been on 2 of my trips have had balconies. 1 has had a porthole. I have spent a total combined amount of time of maybe 4.5 minutes on my balcony. I didn't use it. I loved having the porthole, honestly. I thought it was really fun, especially during some of the rougher weather, to just watch the ocean completely take over my entire window. I really liked that. I prefer the porthole, but I also am a budget conscious person. I personally don't think the extra cost is worth it for me as a human being. So I'm team porthole all the way.
Sarah?
Well, I'm going to kind of show my cards again. I think that it depends on what kind of person you are, because if you're a person that's outgoing, you want to be out and about, you're not going to spend much time in your cabin. You're just going to go there to sleep. So I've been on interior cabins, I've been in portholes, I've been in it all. And the reality is you go there to sleep, you get up, take a shower, and you go out again. Don't spend a lot of time there. If you're on a romantic trip with your partner and you want to spend time in your cabin, it can be really nice to have a balcony or floor to ceiling windows because you get great views. But it's way better to be out in public spaces and use those exterior decks to be out and see wildlife and see what's going on. So I think it goes back to what kind of traveler you are, but I'm definitely a team don't be in your cabin. Be out and about.
Phil?
Yeah, so I'll say as a guide, it is only every once in a blue moon that I get a cabin that has a balcony. I'm usually, interior cabins or portholes at best. But when I have had a cabin that has a balcony, I'll go outside. You usually are able to throw on a jacket and take a picture of something that's going by, which is cool, but I'm not spending a ton of time on my balcony either. A couple of things there. You're not going to see like chairs or furniture laid out on balconies usually, especially in the Antarctic, because weather comes in and it can be really unpredictable. And you're definitely not going to have any deck chairs out on the Drake Passage. Right.
Yeah.
And I also feel like kind of exposed as well, because, I always want to keep my window open because it's so beautiful outside, but then people are walking by. The balconies on the ships that I've been on have been also walkways. So people generally tend to walk around and can no one's like going and peeking into each other's cabins, but but there's people out there, and I usually like to recline and relax when I'm, off the clock.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
Summarize it pretty easily here. If you're not worried about your budget, book a balcony cabin. It's that simple, right? If you are budget conscious and you're thinking porthole cabin because you want to save some money, book the porthole cabin because there's a very good chance you can always upgrade to a balcony later. You can never really go down to a porthole later on. Most ships, the balcony cabins make up a large portion of their ships. Not every ship. Some only have a handful of them, but most of these newer ships are like 80% balcony cabins. Book the porthole first and then work your way up later on. Maybe a sale comes up, or maybe maybe you get your tax return and you're like, okay, I can spring a little bit for a balcony cabin. But everybody else is saying you barely use your balcony cabin. And on shorter trips, I would almost even completely eliminate the idea of it. Longer trips, it is a little bit nicer to have a balcony cabin. But 2 things to consider. 1, porthole cabins are always lower on the ship, which will be better for the Drake Passage, unless sometimes they're a little far forward in the bow. That's one thing to consider. Whereas like a deck 3 bow porthole will be worse than a deck 4 aft balcony in the seas. So cabin location will also make a difference if you're prone to seasickness. Other than that, it's just a matter of, are you going to use it or not? If you're in a porthole cabin, there's a really good chance that you're going to force yourself to go be out and socialize. Plus, there's always things going on. People are playing cards. People are at lectures. People are at the bar. There's always something going on the ship. There's very little downtime unless you're seasick. Yeah. So it'll kind of force you to get out of your cabin and go do things. There is something nice about coming back. The operation's wrapping up. Zodiacs are still coming home. They're coming back to the ship from the landing. You're one of the first boats back. You get on your balcony. You got a glass of wine in your hand. Watch everybody come back. That is a kind of a nice touch to the end of the day. That's always feels really nice, right? While you're like still in your clothes, you got your Crocs and your warm socks on. You're out there, glass of wine, hot toddy or something. That's it. That wraps it up. We're gonna do one more question. We're gonna wrap this episode up. The question is, from your experience, what would be the best advice you would give customers in preparation for travel to Antarctica? That's exactly what I wanted to wrap this up on. Just one quick question for everybody. What's one last piece of advice? And I'm sorry beforehand if I didn't answer your question. The episode's running over an hour, and we are going to do this every 10th episode. We'll maybe address your questions in a future episode. So we'll end on that. What's just one piece of advice? And if you need a second to think about it, let me know when you're ready, because we'll give everybody else some advice. You ready? Okay, Sarah, what's your piece of advice?
I think my biggest piece of advice to people is to be open to embracing the adventure of it. I know it's a big trip. It's a lot of money. You put lots of time planning, but it is an expedition. And so if you can give yourself over a little bit to the experience, to trust the expedition team, to just rolling with the plans and enjoying it, not worrying too much about exactly where you're going to go or how it's going to be, you're going to have an amazing time. And just, trust the expedition team, trust the process. And that it's not a typical trip. It's not your normal trip that you have the full itinerary for. So just go with it. Short.
Bill?
Solid advice. And that's what we tell people as soon as they get on board as well. This is not a cruise. This is an expedition, and things are going to change. We can guarantee that we're going to be back in Ushuaia at the end of the trip, and that's the only thing we got. That's the standard line. I've got too many pieces of advice here, only because you mentioned one first. And I think it's like a sneaky good call. When you book your cabin on a ship, if you're working with a top tier talented agency like Freestyle or Antarctica Travel Group, you can ask for a cabin towards the back of the ship, and you are going to get less motion back there, especially if you're looking at, crossing the Drake. And if you have any worries about that, back of the ship is the place to be. And if you're on like a deck 4 or something, that's usually pretty good. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn. You guys tell me if that's not correct. But the other piece of advice would be to read up on some of the stories around these places, because there's so much context around the human exploration side and the biology of it. And to come down with context, to have learned a bit about the place and to get truly excited about it is, I feel, leads to a much more enriching experience. So if you're interested in the exploration side, there's a ton of stuff that happened on the Antarctic Peninsula that you can really sink your teeth into. There's a lot of stuff like even just watching documentaries. Like I was on Netflix the other day and was watching Our Planet, the polar episode. I don't know if you've seen that, but in that episode, I'm like, oh, I've been there. and I've been there and I've been there, which is cool, to like humble brag, right? But there's so much to learn about these places, and you're only going to be more enriched by having a little bit of context before you actually go down and talk to people who are experts in the field. So that's my bit.
Yeah,
good ones. Nikki,
I'm gonna say, don't get too hung up on the details for booking your trip. Things like the exact number of people that are going to be on board or things like that. It's the most magical place ever. You're going to have a really, really, really fantastic time. If the food isn't exactly what you want it to be, you're not going to walk away going like, well, it could have been a better trip. Like, you're going to have a good time. So those little details, unless you're like really, really, really a particular person, don't worry about them. Just don't worry about them.
go on. I'm going to kind of summarize a little bit of everybody's all into one. It's basically, I would say, temper your expectations and be able to, like you mentioned, flexibility and stuff. But there is, I can't think of another really solid trip in the world that requires so much flexibility from the guests on board, because everything just changes so fast, and just trust that no matter how your trip goes, you're seeing the best version of it, and trust that your captain, your crew, your expedition guides, everybody is working so hard to deliver everything that they can, and you're never getting intentionally shortchanged. So if you go on a trip where you have a canceled landing or 2 days of canceled landings, don't say, oh, my trip was ruined. Say, I got to see the powerful forces that Antarctica has. Mm-hmm. That's why you chose this place. You didn't, I said it, I joked before, you didn't book a trip to Tahiti, so, embrace every opportunity for what it is in real time, and don't ever feel you got compromised. Yes, there's bad luck. Yes, there are trips that had to get canceled. There's a ship issue. You have every right to be disappointed in those situations. But if you make it down there and something happens that doesn't go according to the plan that you built in your own brain, manage your expectations beforehand. Allow us to do what we do best. Trust in your crew, trust in your captain, and everything else will just be what it is. It's all just cherry on the top after that. So I also, on that note, do your research, ask every question that you have, but avoid Googling too much stuff, because there is a lot of misinformation on the internet. You don't want to see every photo of everywhere you're going to go. Don't Google what the destinations look like. Let it all be a surprise to you. Be present in the moment. And on that last note, at least one day on one landing, because you're going to do 2 per day, on one opportunity, one landing opportunity, leave your phone and your camera behind and just go out with your own eyeballs and your ears, and just forget everything back on the ship for once, and don't live behind the screen.
Yep. I love that.
One more quick one, if you may. Be on deck. Be on deck all the time. Be outside all the time. We always joke that the smokers see the most wildlife because they're on deck.
Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely
true.
Stuff happens so quickly. A pod of killer whales can swim by, and people won't see them except for the people that are out on deck. Be ready to go at all times. Be in your cabin with your jacket, with your camera, with your binoculars, and be ready to rip out of your cabin like at all hours of the day. Right?
Yeah.
When you're there, take advantage of it. Sleep when you're home, and just absorb that place as much as you can.
All amazing advice.
Great advice.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in. I hope that this went as we were expecting. I hope that we had people watching, we had people asking questions. We're going to be able to post this. Obviously, we'll post this on Thursday, or the normal schedule. I feel like I'm going to post the video soon now, and just let them know what we were doing and let them know what they missed out on. Please send any other questions that you have to info@thedrakeshake.com. If you're interested in another one of these episodes, we're happy to do it again. I thought this was fun. Did you guys have a good time? This was rad. This was really cool. Yeah, this was good.
Yeah, it's good.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah.
You know what's awesome, Nikki, is we don't have to edit it. It's perfect.
Oh my, I was just thinking that when you were saying we're going to post it, I was like, oh my God, that's like so many hours in my week. I just
going to post it just like this, unfiltered. Sarah, I know you got to run. You got kids and you got a whole thing. So thank you again,
guys.
Sarah. We'll get you on for another episode. We'll figure out what that one's going to be. Phil, we are getting a lot of questions about the Arctic. There was a question here we didn't get to answer. So I think maybe it's time, maybe you, me, and Jeff will touch base. We'll do an Arctic episode. I think it's worth doing a whole episode dedicated to. Sorry we couldn't answer that question for you. Nikki, you and I will chat soon. Go enjoy the remaining days of confinement.
Yep.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one. And now that Sarah's gone, if you're interested in booking a trip to Antarctica, please reach out.
Got
it. No, really, if you are interested in booking a trip to Antarctica or the Arctic, please reach out to us. We are really excited to help every single one of you book. You can visit our website, letsgopolar.com, and reach out to us, and we'll be here on standby, ready to help. Phil, I love you, buddy.
Hey, love you guys. Yeah, thanks for this. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Yeah, for those of you live, you're the real heroes. Yeah, appreciate it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
How do we do